Okay guys, we're going to do a quick review of multiplying mixed numbers. So remember that mixed numbers are a kind of fraction that involves a whole number and a fraction. So typically we've been using mixed numbers when we've been finding areas of shapes or just when we've been practicing our multiplication. So when you have a mixed number times another mixed number, we learned a couple different methods here. We learned the area model method where we took this and split it into 4 separate equations, saying it's 2.5 times 3 3/5, and then each of these boxes gets its own equation, 3/5. So this would be 2 times 3, this would be 2 times 3/5, etc. And you end up with 4 different equations. That's one way of solving this. And you'd end up with 2 times 3 plus 2 times 3/5 plus 3 times 1/3 plus 3/5 times 1/2. You end up with 4 separate equations, one for each of the boxes. That is an awesome way of doing this problem. Another way of doing this problem, if you want to avoid doing the addition of fractions, is to turn these two mixed numbers into one single fraction instead of being 2 separate numbers. So I can think of 2 as really 4 halves. So I can do 4 halves plus 1/2 is 5 halves. The shortcut way we learned about that is taking our denominator times our whole number plus our numerator. So 2 times 2 plus 1 is going to give me 5. And then our denominator is always the same, so it's 5 halves. For this one, 3 times 5 is 15, plus 3 is 18/5. So now I have a new equation here that I'm just going to multiply straight across. The denominator I can do really easily. 2 times 5 is 10. The numerator, 5 times 18, I'm going to have to do off to the side because I can't do that in my head. So 8 times 5 gives me 40. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 4 is 9. So 18 times 5 is 90. Now my new equation is 90/10. Well, whenever my numerator is bigger than my denominator, I'm going to simplify. So I can right away see that 10 goes into both of these and do it that way, or you can think of this as a division expression, 90 divided by 10. 90 divided by 10 gives us 9. So 5 halves times 18/5 equals 9, or 2.5 times 3 3/5 equals 9. You would have gotten 9 as well if you had done this problem all the way through. You would have just had to do it in pieces. 2 times 3 equals 6. 2 times 3/5 is going to give you 1 1/5. 3 times 1/3 is going to give you 1. 3/5 times 1/2 is going to give you 3/10. And then you have to add them all together. And you can see here where we come into a problem, we have to add a fraction. And that's not always our favorite thing to do. So we're just going to stick with our improper fraction and our multiplication. Let's practice again. This time we're going to have a mixed number of 1 2/3 times a fraction. Now, we're going to treat this the exact same way. I want to turn my mixed number into a single fraction. So 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5/3. So 1 2/3 equals 5/3. And my 3/4 I actually don't need to do anything to because it's already just one fraction. I can just treat it as is. So my new equation is 5/3 times 3/4. I'm going to multiply them straight across and end up with 15/12. 15/12 can then be simplified, and I can do 15 divided by 12. Or if I can see how many 15s or how many 12s go into 15, I can say 1 whole 12 goes into 15, and then I'm left with 3 remaining. So I get 3/12. And that's not completely done all the way. I need to simplify 3/12 by dividing each by 3, and I get 1 1/4. So when you have a mixed number times a fraction, we treat it the exact same way, but I only have to translate my mixed number into an improper fraction. My 3/4 fraction stays the same. So now go ahead and practice on your own to get better at multiplying mixed numbers times mixed numbers, or mixed numbers times fractions, really just practicing working with our mixed numbers.